And I'd like to call this meeting to order on this July 8th, 2021 at 5:31 p.m. I'd like to acknowledge that the offices of Laurier are on the traditional territory of the Mutual and Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee people. As for regrets, I have received none. Is there can I get a motion to adopt the agenda as presented? Motion by Director Vale, seconded by Director Shandok. Would you like to speak to your motion? Any discussion on the matter? If not, then all those in favor, Director Bothwell,
I approve.
Director Shandok,
I approve.
Director Del Giudice,
I approve.
Director May, Director May, we have an approval. Oh, perfect, thank you. Director McCarthy,
I approve.
Director Symington,
I approve.
Director Vale,
I approve.
and Vice Chair Sneedy.
I approve.
Perfect, the motion passes unanimous consent. Next, moving on to conflict of interest. Are there any conflict of interest to declare? I do have one. I have a conflict of interest when we get to the board honorarium discussion, especially pertaining to the chair honorarium section of that. So for that part discussion, I'm going to only act as a resource, but I'll leave the primary discussion to the rest of the board members and just adhere to Robert's rules in that regard. Okay, moving on. Can we have, if there's no other conflict of interest, can we have a motion to approve of the consent agenda, which is the monitoring report GP2H and the monitoring report EL2A and EL2H? Motion by Director Vale again, seconded by Director Shandok. Would you like to speak to your motion? Any discussion on the matter? I will just say one thing in terms of my report. There was that one section that was non-compliant, but that was just simply due to the fact that the ownership linkage discussion did not occur, but will be occurring today. So after this meeting, it will be compliant, just for on the record. But with that being said, if there's no other discussion questions, all those in favor, Director Bothwell,
I approve.
Director Shando,
I approve.
Director Del Giudice,
I approve.
Director May,
I approve.
Director McCarthy,
I approve.
Director Symington,
I approve.
Director Vale,
I approve.
and Vice Chair Sneedy.
I approve.
Okay, the motion passes with unanimous consent. Now moving on to comments from the chair and CGO. So I do have a couple more comments now that I have some more information. So first, I'm going to speak to upon again an update on the board resignations, as well as updates regarding the exit interview with former director Loa Chi. So the exit interview did in fact occur this week. It was with Vice Chair Sneedy, President Yamloff, our HR consultant Shauna Wei, and Kiana. I believe that was all the members there. In terms of notes, I've still yet to receive them from Shauna, and once I do, I will be more than happy to send them to the board on the way, and the same type of measures in terms of confidentiality do apply. In terms of new information, many of the concerns were very much echoed in the first exit interview, but I still feel it is, for sake of transparency, but also to give an update to all directors, certain recommendations kind of and issue items that were discussed here. So I'm going to present them to the board now. So in terms of the first issue, that was very much noted for all the exit interviews, but reiterated in the previous one, there were miscommunications that arose from an environment of cultural insensitivity. And there was a number of recommendations that were discussed. Recommendation 1, the board should participate in a diversity training program with a focus to give space to one another when dealing with potentially difficult topics, as well as how to communicate with compassion when the gravity of certain matters is misunderstood. The second recommendation is that if there is a concern with a director, the chair should discuss the matter with them individually and then address the board as a whole to clarify the behavior that won't be tolerated without identifying or singling out that particular director in question. Recommendation 3 is that the president should provide the board with updates surrounding what the organization is doing in regards to social justice type matters. Recommendation 4, the chair should provide clarity on who directors are to speak to if they do not feel comfortable with going to either the chair or the vice chair. Then moving on to the second issue. The second issue pertains to that Ian and Phil are referenced too often for the support in clarifying board policy and government processes, which has created a perception that they are controlling the board. In terms of recommendations, there are 3. The first one being that the chair and vice chair should participate in managerial training to help them gain confidence in their leadership skills, which will aid them in leading board meetings and all matters more effectively. The second recommendation is that the board should go through further governance training to help them better understand and purpose and parameters of the roles as directors, as well as that of the chair and president, to help reduce the amount of times Ian and Phil are required to provide policy guidance. And the third and final recommendation is that the board should be provided with greater clarity on Phil and Ian's roles as the board supports. So I do understand that that was a lot of information taken, and I'm more than happy to share this information with all of you via email, as well as laying, based on a further discussion on a statement in terms of how we want to inform the public moving forward. But in terms of current plans moving forward, so these recommendations were taken not just from our HR consultant, but also with the direct comments of the 3 former directors in mind. So this was very much something that was, directly designed to address their concerns. And in regards to that, I think that in terms of the training plan, as with diversity training, as well as the conflict resolution plan, I don't think there's really too many changes that occur, because I think that that really addresses all these issues here. But yes, for now, I will open the floor to some questions. Director Singleton.
Yeah, could we just get that? Will we be getting those recommendations in writing?
Yes, I will send them to email right after my comments are done, if that is satisfactory to the board. And I'm more than happy to share that to the public if we are all okay with it. I do not believe that there's any confidential information here. And I think that it's important to know that the students that we are taking this matter quite seriously, and these are the plans that we are having to move on. I know that one comment that was made that was this training plan just simply a team building exercise, and no, it's the team building exercise is one part of it, just to make us as directors more comfortable with having these type of conversations, while keeping in mind that whatever's said on the board table is not reflective of the person, right? And that they're just opinions. But the main exercise is the diversity training, the policy training, as well as that conflict resolution with EDI. Are there any other questions here? I want to make sure that people have the time and not rushing through this matter. In regards to the training plan, this is something that, although discussed last meeting, is more than open to suggestions, as directors have ideas in order to improve things and make sure that moving forward the board is better in terms of our ability to communicate and ability to deal with these situations of high gravity. But if there's no questions here, then
Wait, sorry, Andrew.
yes.
I can't raise my hand from my phone. Sorry.
Okay, no problems.
Do we have a date set for the training? I know you mentioned we were talking about July 15th, but is that set in stone, or Just want to know.
Unfortunately not. I know that
Okay.
there's some members who are going to be on vacation next couple of weeks. So in terms
Yeah,
of the
myself
EDI
included.
training, I think it's very important for us to all be back together. So I know this
Okay.
has perception of like we're just delaying it, but no, it's just because we want to make sure that everyone's here together. And I rather delay this, but have a much more higher quality result, if that makes sense.
Sounds good.
The
Yep.
policy training that can occur without the person who is who's going to be on vacation. So that will be sent out. The only problem is that this is being the summertime, so it's very difficult to coordinate with not just the directors here, but also the people that we want to invite into or plan to invite in, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
Does that answer your questions, Director Bothwell?
Yeah, it does. Thanks.
Okay. Moving on to the second point, which is the statement. So I appreciate everyone's patience with that too as well. I know that many directors were not satisfied with kind of like waiting on the statement. But due to the extenuating circumstances of how the third resignation occurred, it was highly recommended by HR as well as operations and other experts to hold off on the statement until the exit interview occurred. So the board was in fact aware of all the facts and all the information before we made a decision. Now that the exit interviews have occurred, we are able to together as a board discuss what type of statement we would like to put out in regards to the acknowledgement. I know that there was some interest about talking about like adding to the additional adding to the statement that we presented last meeting, like not just the plans that we will have undertaken these steps, but also discussing kind of the plans moving forward, because that's what the reality is going on with. Is that something that directors are okay with, or are we more concerned with just sending out the statement that as is right now to make sure that the students know that we're not just keeping silent about this? Do you have a general consensus? Anyone want to speak about that? Or am I getting nods of indifference? Can anyone give me like a thumbs up or something like that if that's kind of like the direction the board wants? Or so I'm seeing nods. So in that case, then I'll go back to operations and legal counsel to draft up a new statement. Hopefully that will be sent out as soon as possible, before the beginning of next week, hopefully. But rest assured that a statement will be sent out now that all the exit interviews are done. Okay. If there's no other questions regarding that, and is there any questions from the gallery regarding this? Okay. As I see none, then I'm moving on to my next point for updates, which is the board request to have the meetings posted, live streamed on Facebook or YouTube. We did reach out to ICT regarding that, but then as you saw in my email, there was the issue that ICT had, which was the inability for us using the single paid account that is the board share account to just stream from there, and perhaps there might be a requirement to pay to have to buy another account to stream from that, just due to some of the confidentiality issues with the university. So this will be like a private account. But I believe I got an update from our full-time resources saying that there might be an opportunity to actually implement this without actually having to incur a additional costs. So we are going to be looking on that. I see Phil, you have your hand up.
Yeah, sorry, I was trying to look for the formal one, but didn't
Yeah.
get there in time. So the Vice President Programming and Services on Brantford campus has been looking into live streaming options as a part of his portfolio and ultimately what will become a multi-campus portfolio. And so he kind of, in the process of kind of presenting what his idea was, let us know about some free software that allows for us to stream across whichever platform we want. full disclosure, I don't know a lot about that. So if the board is amenable, you can kind of make that recommendation to President Jamaloff, that we can kind of facilitate that conversation with Vice President Smith.
Yeah, no, and that's great. And for those of you guys who don't know, Vice President Smith, he's from the Brantford campus. I've had the pleasure of working with him before on the Senate. Absolutely fantastic guy. And my recommendation is we pursue this option, because any way to kind of achieve what our goals is, which is more outreach, more transparency, more accountability, without having to incur an additional costs on the student's dime, I think is a absolute fantastic alternative. Yes, Director Vale.
Yeah, no, I'm in full support of it. I think that's, a great idea. Like you said, there's really no cost to it. And I think it kind of gets where we're at in terms of, might help further engagement with the board, as well as really ensuring that students are able to, watch these meetings. And because I remember, I think back to, when I was sort of after, I guess, director-elect, right? One of the frustrations I had is I'm at work, so I can't watch the meetings. And then when I want to go watch them, just kind of keep abreast of what's going on, sometimes it could be a month or two before the actual Zoom recording is available. So I think this is a good avenue to pursue. I'm in full support.
Absolutely.
I thank staff for, for this sort of creative solution workaround.
No, that's thank you for those comments. Do we have any other questions, or are we kind of in support of just kind of going in and investigating this route? Okay. Yep. Thank you. Okay. So in that case, then I will send a formal letter asking about this potential live stream to President Yamaloff after this meeting. Okay, but in terms, sorry, I'm just getting a side message here. Sorry, Director Bothwell, would you like to speak upon this?
No, I was just gonna say, like, I just finished a marketing job, and I've also explored all the free resources. So I think it's a really good avenue to explore, and you have my full support. And I also can probably be an asset to reach out to set this up.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, and I think we can kind of include this into portfolio of what the social media ad hoc committee can do.
Absolutely.
That sounds like a fantastic idea. Thank you for those comments. Moving on, is there any other comments regarding any of my updates, not just this? If not, then we can move on to next agenda update, which is the comments from the president and CEO. So I'll pass off to President Yamaloff now.
Okay, thanks, Andrew. So as all of you know now, I've been participating in the exit interview process with Ezra for Kiana's exit interview, and that Andrew with the other former board members. Within those exit interviews, it became very clear that I should be more transparent in relations to what I'm doing in Indigenous initiatives and so forth. As I know that this is something that a lot of board members are very passionate about, and I apologize for that. So first off, one of the things that I'm really excited to discuss is that I have created a working group amongst my staff, and we have started with consultations and a few active pieces that we want to work on in relations to Indigenous initiatives. However, we've only met on the one brief occurrence so far, so there hasn't been any real action items in fruition at the moment. So I will be keeping you updated as the year progresses. There are first year initiatives from my platform that my team and I have been working on, which is in the updates for the operations team. And then the restorative justice process, as many of you may know, has been in occurrence, and I have been attending the one meeting we've had so far and the future meetings coming up. But as for updates, that's pretty much most of what I have at the moment.
Does anyone have any questions for President Yamaloff? Any questions at all? Okay, as I see none, we can move on. Thank you so much, President Yamal, for your updates. We can move on to the comments from the Executive Director and CEO.
Just a few things to add to the updates that were provided as a part of the agenda package. We continue to work pretty diligently with our university partners to get on-campus in-person events ready for orientation week and September. We're working diligently with all of the kind of safety and risk management folks to make sure that we kind of follow public health guidelines. And we are optimistic that both Waterloo Region as well as Brant County will be in a state of positive in-person events come September. Also working closely with university partners to get the Empower Me mental health student assistance program off the ground and ready for students come fall. Working with Brant Transit to work through the fall assessment of the Brant Transit fee for Brantford students, and doing the same thing on the Waterloo campus with regards to Grand River Transit. And lastly, the second floor renovations of the second floor renovations of the Fred Nichols Campus Center are comfortably underway as we speak. And so that project is still on track to be finished mid to late August, ready in time for a return to campus in September. And that's about it.
Thank you, Executive Director Champagne. Does anyone have any questions regarding for him regarding the status of campus reopening? Yes, Director Vale.
It was actually a slightly different topic, and I guess it's through Mr. Chair to the Executive Director. I guess, and this is more just a high level, but since seeming that Laurie is going to be expanding to an even bigger, multi-campus environment, that being Milton in, a number of years, I guess, does our board need to start looking potentially at like a very high level or planning in terms of setting money aside in the next budget, or is there anything our board or that we need to sort of start looking at to kind of facilitate what might transpire down the road?
So at this stage, the answer, as of July 8th, the answer to that question is not yet. I believe that the Milton campus expansion will be a subject of discussion and a strategic vision put in place over the course of this year and the several years to come. We have been contacted by our partners at Conestoga Students Incorporated to see if there's an opportunity to kind of partner in the fact that both institutions are going to play a pretty pivotal role in what ends up on Milton campus. So the short answer is not yet. The long-term answer is absolutely. We will be having those discussions to figure out what the Students Union's footprint looks like, both figuratively and literally on the Milton campus for the, I believe, classes are set to begin for undergrads, I want to say fall of 2024. So yeah, that'll be a long-term discussion for sure.
Does that answer our questions, Director Vale?
Yeah, no, thank you. It does. Thank you very much.
Perfect. Is there the floor is open to more questions? Does anyone have any? As I see none, then we can move on and thank Executive Director Champagne for his updates. Next, we're moving on to the period monitoring change proposal. So I'll then pass it on to our Director of Policy, Research and Advocacy, Muller.
Good evening, everyone. So this is a relatively straightforward administrative change proposal. As the brief outlined, a bit of background, the monitoring schedule contained in the policy manual was originally laid out over the 13 periods of our previous financial year. And in between the 2019-2020 year and the 2020-2021 year, the Students Union changed to a straight 12-month fiscal calendar. So given that, this is a proposal for your consideration just to bring the policy manual monitoring periods back in line with the fiscal calendar. So there's a couple motions, proposed motions in that document that take care of all of the necessary edits to bring that into a 12-month monitoring calendar should the board choose to make that change.
Thank you, Director of Policy, Research and Advocacy, Muller. Does anyone have any questions regarding that? just to kind of like reiterate, the main change is really just changing the period numbers to make more sense to align with a normal fiscal calendar. So like, for example, changing the period 13 to 12. 13 just being
Yeah,
the overlap back to when we start
Uh,
again in May.
I
Yes,
have a quick question.
floor is yours, Director Bothwell.
Thanks. Sorry. So, is the start of the 12-month period, is it September or is it January? Just for clarification, and just for my own knowledge.
Phil.
So the fiscal year begins May 1. So period 1 would be May 1. Period 2 would be June
Oh.
1, etc.
So it doesn't line up with the academic year?
It lines up with the academic year, but the academic year and fiscal year for both the university and the students union begins May 1.
It also helps to that it begins with kind of, I guess, the a term cycle, right? When we start and when we take office in May 1st. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. That like, yeah, I guess the board starts May 1st, but like like, you know, when you start university, you start like the start date of like your university career is like September 1st.
I know that that's the majority of that's what's supposed to be the case, right?
Yeah,
but this is
okay,
just
that
what
makes sense.
the fiscal calendar is for the university and students union.
Okay.
Does that answer your question though?
Yeah, I just was wondering when it started, but that's fine.
Okay, perfect. Do we have any other questions regarding the proposed edits to the policy manual? Assuming that this indifference is a board approval, I'm gonna quickly just ask. So in terms of proposed motions, and any one of them would kind of take care of the proposed changes, right? Or would we have to motion for all of them?
Yeah, they're laid out. You would need to motion all four. It was, I mean, it's proposed as a relatively straightforward way to represent the change, both for the board currently as well as in the minutes, just so there's no ambiguity about changing. And for reference, the 2 pages of the policy manual that are attached, the highlights are equal the changes in those motions. Sorry, there are 3 pages of the policy manual with highlights that represents the changes. So essentially moving from 13 to 12 periods. And then because the monitoring schedule was in 13 periods, that's just been bumped back to accommodate the 12-month period. So a few 13s have been turned into 12s and a few 12s have been turned into 11 with the same balance maintained that existed prior.
Okay, so assuming that the board approves of all the motions, would I require 4 separate motions, or is it possible to just do it all in one fell swoop to save on time?
That's I'll leave that to your discretion.
Okay, in that case, I'm gonna call for so yes, Director Vale.
I'll move the 4 proposed motions as printed. I'm not going to belabor in reading them. If that makes sense, just for the sake of time.
Much obliged. Do we have a seconder? Okay, Vice Chair Sneedy. Would you like to speak to your motion? Any discussion on the matter? So just for clarification of record, these are the 4 proposed motions on page 48, which is the brief in our agenda package, which will be included in the minutes, though specifics. But in that, I guess if there's no discussion on the matter, all those in favor? Director Bothwell,
I approve.
Director Shanto,
I approve.
Director Del Giudice,
I approve.
Director May, Director May.
I approve.
Thank you. Director McCarthy. Director McCarthy. Okay, I'll come back to him. Director Symington.
I approve, and I don't think Director McCarthy is in the meeting anymore.
Oh yes, I believe he just left. Okay, thank you for that. Director Vale
I approve.
and Vice Chair Sneedy.
I approve.
The motion passes unanimous consent with the exception of Director McCarthy. Thank you for the timestamp there, Director Vale. In terms of the proposed policy change here, this will make the DIC committees make a lot more sense for those who are going to be serving on the Finance Committee, which is going to come up in August. So be excited for that, guys. My favorite committee. Now we can move on next to the board honorary discussion. So just to give a brief exposition, this was an issue that occurred with the last board, but happened very late in the board term, and it was motioned that there was a solution to be provided with, but it was determined that it would be best left for the next board, which is currently right now, to deal with it. In terms of some additional background information, since I do have the conflict of interest, I'm going to pass over to full-time resources to help with this explanation.
Doc, you want me to take this one? That look
Yes,
on your
please.
face. Yeah.
Yeah, just because of the sensitivity of this,
Yeah, no,
regarding
it's
my
fine.
position.
So last year, full disclosure, I don't remember the actual genesis point of all of this, but ultimately it was discovered that the board and the organization wasn't compliant with its own governing documents with regards to compensation. There was a lot of research done into what an honorarium is, what it should be, what the amount should be, and things of that nature. As such, in the process of doing that review, we sought legal counsel advice on, what is the right path forward, etc. So most of the brief that was presented to the board is that advice from legal counsel, and ultimately the board needs to do a review of their own governing documents and ultimately the concept of an honorarium. I thought that the purpose of this discussion was ultimately to strike an ad hoc committee to do that review, which would include some full-time staff resources, some HR resources, potentially some legal counsel resources. That's yet to be determined. A sector-wide kind of review of what is the best practice across the sector. Ultimately making recommendations on how best to kind of become compliant with our governing documents. From a very simplistic standpoint, it could be a referendum to change the governing documents to best fit the model that we currently have. It could be a recommendation to reduce the honorarium and bring it more in line traditionally with what an honorarium ought to be. Or it could be somewhere in between. It would also include a complete and total review of the job description for the chair of the board specifically, but not exclusively, because there's also an honorarium for the secretary of the board, as well as the chief returning officer and the deputy returning officer. So all of those job descriptions would need to be reviewed and figure out what the best compensation models for those would be. But in terms of the direct conflict with our governing documents, the only one that's in direct conflict right there would be the chair of the board, who currently receives what I will call a healthy honorarium. And that's pretty much it. So happy to answer any questions. But ultimately, I think the goal is to strike that ad hoc committee so that they can do the work and ultimately make the recommendation moving forward on how best to proceed.
Thank you, Executive Director Champagne. In terms of the only comments I'll make, I'm complete support of whatever decision the board deems. My foremost priority in this circumstance is not my own salary, but or honorarium, but to make sure that we are going to be compliant with our own governing documents there. So I guess I'll open the floor to questions, and if you feel uncomfortable with me handling, I'm more than happy to step down for this discussion and pass on to the vice chair to handle this. But yeah, but I guess the floor is open. Do any directors have any questions regarding this situation or to Executive Director Champagne? Yes, Director Vale.
I guess I'll put a motion forward that we strike an ad hoc committee to be comprised of 3 or 4, I guess, board members, the president, CEO, executive director, CEO, and plus others as needed. And then the committee should review the job description and basically the actions requested, more or less. kind of in line with that.
Okay, I guess we can absolutely more than happy to do that, to have a motion on that. Would you like to be more, I guess, specific on the number of directors to sit on it?
I guess how much of an interest is there from the, I guess, the board as a whole?
I know that in context with ad hoc committees, there are 4 directors plus the chair that sits on there. This is where I will again say my expertise does not suffice. I'm not too sure if I'm allowed to sit on this committee. Ian, if it's possible to speak on that, just simply due to conflict of interest.
Probably best for the board to discuss what their approach is going to be on that.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So I guess in that case, Director Vale, this would be a good opportunity for your motion to discuss what the structure of it is like. Again, I'm more than happy to stand down and let the vice chair take the lead on this in my stead.
Sure. So is this something, Director Vale, that you would like to motion? Obviously, the chair would not vote or abstain, and then from there the committee would be struck, and then we would decide who would sit on it.
Yeah, I guess like is 3 to 4 a reasonable number? I guess do we think as a board? I guess that's what I'm wondering.
I
guess-
agree with I think probably 4, given like the depth and nature of
Mhm.
the review that we're going to be conducting. And then I also agree that I think instead of having Andrew sitting on the committee, or Director Dang, seeing as he is a direct conflict of interest, that we should probably substitute it with Vice Chair Sinity, if he is willing.
So if that's the case, then I would have to be nominated and then go from there. So
Yeah, but like instead of having like, you know, how we normally have the chair, like instead just have the vice chair. That's an easy thing we can do. Or
so would you want me to just sit in that meeting then, or would you want me to be a part of the committee?
to be, well, I'm not so clear of what the director's role is in an ad hoc
Executive
meeting.
Director
I'm
Champagne?
just suggesting that you would, I was going to just say, I would suggest that you fill the role of the chair in like the ad hoc committee, because
I think
Andrew would be unable to
Executive
participate.
Director Champagne can help answer that question there.
So traditionally, the chair would sit on that committee, chair the very first meeting, and the first matter of that first meeting is to elect a chair of that committee. And then the traditional chair of the board would sit down and be an active participant on that committee. So in this particular case, it sounds like you would want Vice Chair Sinity to fill that role and then ultimately have that discussion and election of a chair of that ad hoc committee. Yes?
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. If the rest of the board is okay with that.
Do we have any other comments from the other directors of the board? Or we can move back to Director Vale or Executive Director Champagne.
So from a formality standpoint, again, formality is not necessarily my strong suit, but it might be best to strike the committee with Andrew on it. And then once you're on it, you can recuse yourself.
Mhm. Okay, I think that might be the easiest option, just to have a normal DIC, normal ad hoc committee then. So if that's the case and you'd like 4 directors other than myself, we can recommend to strike an ad hoc committee with the membership being myself, the chair, who will be recused, and 4 directors. Does this sound okay with the board? I'll pass it back to Director Vale on that point there.
Yeah, no, I'd say I think with up to 4 directors and plus yourself ex officio as chair of this board proper.
Perfect. Okay, so would you like to have that motion restated then again, Director Vale?
Sure. So I would motion to strike an ad hoc committee to be comprised of board members, the president and CEO, executive director, and COO, plus others as needed, and then that was up to 4 board members. And then the basically just take the wording from page 53
Perfect.
and then just put 4 directors.
Okay, perfect. I can have that. So can I have a motion on the table to strike this ad hoc committee regarding the board honorarium? Requires of specifically 4 board members, right? Right. Yeah, so just to kind of confirm that you have there. And that was motioned by Director Vale, seconded by Director Del Giudice. Would you like to speak to your motion? Any discussion on the matter? They see none. All those in favor, Director Bothwell,
I approve.
Director Shando,
I approve.
Director Del Giudice,
I approve.
Director May.
I approve.
I'm assuming Director McCarthy is still absent. Director Symington,
I approve.
Director Vale,
I approve.
Vice Chair Sneedy.
I approve.
Motion passes unanimous consent without Director McCarthy. So now we can enter committee elections. So we need 4 directors to stand. Yes, Vice Chair Sneedy.
I'd like to nominate Director Vale.
Director Vale, do you stand?
Yes, I do.
And we have 3 more nominations opened up regardless of campus. Director Vale.
I'd like to nominate Director or Vice Chair Sneedy.
Vice Chair Sneedy, do you stand?
Yes, I do.
Vice Chair Sneedy.
I'd like to nominate Director Bothwell.
Director Bothwell, do you stand?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. And Director Vale again.
I'd like to nominate Director May.
Director May, do you stand?
Sure.
Sure. Okay, I'll take that as a yes. Do we have any other nominations on the table? Does I see none? Then can I get a motion on the table to acclaim Director Vale, Vice Chair Sneedy, Director Bothwell, and Director May to the board honorarium ad hoc committee? Motion by Director Del Giudice, seconded by Director Shando. Would you like to speak to your motion? Any discussion on the matter? To see none, all those in favor, Director Bothwell,
I abstain.
Director Shando,
I approve.
Director Del Giudice,
I approve.
Director May.
I abstain.
Director McCarthy is still absent. Director Symington,
I approve.
Director Vale,
I abstain.
and Vice Chair Senior.
Abstain.
Okay, the committee has been struck, and I'll contact the members after this meeting to formulate a meeting with all the members of the committee. Okay, now we can move on to our next point of discussion. This is the ownership linkage spring term discussion. So this is actually perfect prerequisite to our discussion regarding the board vacancy as well as the fall by-election. So for those who do not know, ownership linkage is our opportunity to reach out as directors back to students and figure out what they're concerned about, what do they care about, and help us guide our decisions more better as a board, right? And I think with this coming fall being a hybrid situation, I think it's even more important to just make sure like what are our students really concerned about. Is it mental health? Is it ability to engage back on in-campus activities, as the comments from the president and executive director stated? So traditionally, there would be a committee struck for this, but I feel like since we have the social media committee, as well as with the by-election having the entire board involved, I think it's my recommendation that it's not necessary to have a committee for this one. We can have one perhaps later in the fall specifically for that. Because I think that with the current situation we have, this will be kind of a united board effort, and I want everyone to be as involved as possible. So I guess now is a good time to discuss like what type of ideas do we have. We do have a budget regarding like what we can spend to kind of like outreach for students. Before, for example, like last year when we were online, the board had a giveaway for people to like join the Instagram page, just something to like, come on, like, get a survey, give us some information about what they care about, and then they could potentially win like an Amazon Alexa or AirPods or something like that. But I'm just going to open the floor now for any ideas and suggestions that the board may have. Yes, Director Vale.
Perhaps maybe just a thought like some sort of online event. Like I don't know, that Twan's bingo or something like that. I'll be honest, like it was kind of fun, but I'm not gonna lie, too much math. The other one that your last one.
Yeah, that was a like for some context, the escape room organizers, they have been reaching out to me asking like what's the next event, and some of the feedback has been that like while the first escape room version was fun, the second one that was the event that my board held was a bit too taxing, especially for Friday evening. We're more than happy to work with to work with either them again if we can organize something along the lines that's a bit more like fun and I guess accessible for all students, or as you said, we can try and reach out to Twan or Trivia to try and figure something out as a partnership. Yes, Vice Chair Cgo.
I would like to add, and I'm not sure if Vale hinted at this when he spoke, but just understanding that even though we might be returning in person to some extent in the fall, there will still be those students who are not, and we want to make sure to include them. Our events should be accessible to every student, every member of the union. So even if we are in person in some way, shape, or form, if this event is online, that's because we want to include everybody, as we did last year with the escape room, which I thought was really fun. And I think I should note that Director Bothwell was on the winning team.
Yeah, she did comment saying that she loved that event so much because she did win the couple $100 with her team. I mean, hey, winning is a lot of fun. I'll very much of it. But thank you for those comments, and that definitely is something to take into consideration. Kind of like
Andrew.
Yeah. Yes. Director.
Sorry, Director Diggs. Sorry, I'm so sorry. I can't raise my hand on my phone, so I feel terrible interrupting.
No, my apologies. No, you have the floor.
I was just going to say, like, to Vice Chair Sandy's comment about having things online. I think it's really important that things are accessible. But I think another avenue we could explore is perhaps like looking at like a hybrid event that like could be online and could be in person for the students that are on campus. So even if it's like, I don't really know, but even if it was like some sort of bingo that was also live streamed and students could play online while some students could enjoy it in person. It's just like something to look at as well.
No, absolutely. I think that's something very much to keep into consideration for the fall initial linkage. Just because this is the spring one, I don't think many students are on campus right now in the spring.
Yeah,
but for
exactly.
sure, I'm happy to hear the interest from you guys as directors for this, because this is one of the most important committees, to be honest, to actually reach out back to students. And I think that's type of discussion that we can very much keep in mind for the fall. But for the springtime, I think the ideas should probably be mostly online. And just trying to figure out, I guess, ways that we can not only engage students in a really fun way, but also just kind of like build some outreach to as well, and properly inform the ownership of what the board actually does, the differences between strategic and operations, without being so technical, and also advertise for the upcoming by-election too as well. I think that would be kind of the main things. I am keeping an eye on the time, so I'm more than happy to kind of move this conversation off the board meeting with some of the directors that are very much interested and keen on. But these were some of the options that I laid out. If we're okay with doing that, then we can move on to the fall by-election discussion. So as we discussed in the emergency meeting about 2 weeks ago, and now I believe that there was a discussion either to bring on the runner-up from Brantford or hold the by-election in September. But due to the extenuating circumstances of the third resignation, former Director Loachi, I think the decision now is firmly in favor of actually holding that by-election now. So I've attached the Constitution there again to kind of illustrate to directors what the responsibility and powers of this by-election is, and it's just simply going to be we will have to run and acquire and hopefully have one Brantford at least one Brantford candidate, and the remaining two can be from either campus. So that's just the only thing that we have to keep in mind there. But with that being said, the floor is open to any questions regarding this, and I think there's a motion to approve of this by-election for September afterwards. So, yeah, so hopefully you guys understand kind of like the situation that in terms of like and the power of the Constitution that we have to perform this. Director Vale.
I guess just a comment, I believe, and maybe the operations team would better be suited on this, but I believe, is there a way we can kind of tap into that first orientation week, something somewhere in there about kind of really pushing the election as well, particularly those first year students like this, maybe get involved in that sort of thing as well?
I think that is definitely a possibility. I am going to have to defer that to either President Yamloff or Executive Director Champagne to answer that.
So orientation week is definitely an opportunity to connect with those incoming first year students. It'll also be a kind of weird year where a lot of second year students are also brand new to the campus. So there is lots of opportunity to kind of have touch points with those two groups, especially, and with the Get Involved Fair that will be occurring on both campuses. Those two programs specifically on Brantford and Waterloo are also designed for upper year students, third and fourth year, to be able to engage. So as long as the board is active in those two events, there's lots of opportunity to engage in by-election discussion during that time period. I would like to remind the board that you'll have to at some point obviously select a by-election date and then ultimately approve election policies, etc.
Awesome. President Yamloff.
Yeah, just to add to what Phil just said, I will discuss it with the VPs in charge of programming during those events and our staff to see how we can incorporate that. Obviously, having more information for the August board meeting then.
Thank you, President Yamloff. And just an additional point. So there is, just simply due to timing, there are going to be a number of factors to kind of keep in mind where or not how effectively can we perform this by-election without a CRO, because while it was my intention to hire a CRO early on to drum up some support and enthusiasm for the normal general meeting of our students in January, this is quite a bit early on to hire a CRO in August just for September. So that is just something to keep in mind too as well. But I think to just echo Director Vale's point that this is a unique opportunity once the board kind of moves forward and completing all the training and conflict resolution, the board conduct issues. I think then this is a really great way to try and get a lot of potentially first year students who are really active in those first 2 weeks. Yeah, is there any other questions regarding this? Okay, if not, then can I get a motion on the table to approve of the fall by-election for September of 2021 on a date that will be determined later on? A motion by Director Symington, seconded by Director Del Giudice. Would you like to speak to your motion? Any discussion on the matter? As I see none, All those in favor? Director Bothwell,
I approve.
Director Shandok,
I approve.
Director Del Giudice,
I approve.
thank you. Director May,
I approve.
again, I think Director McCarthy still is not here, fortunately. Director Symington,
I approve.
Director Vale,
I approve. And just a quick question. So are we going to set a date, kind of the August meeting then? Is that sort of the intention or?
yes, so the intention is that now that, once this motion is approved, the wheels per se will be set in motion, and I'll send as much documentation in terms of proposed dates, the best timing. I can work with operations to give updates on when is the best timing for this, right? To align with orientation week, campus fest, that type of, those type of events, as well as a budgetary information too, in terms of how much this is going to cost and how much budget do I have currently allocated for such an event like this.
Perfect. Thanks.
Hopefully that answers all your questions, Director Vale. So going back, is that a approval from you
Yes, no, I approve.
on those conditions, right? To be up to that.
There were just, it was more of a question, but yeah,
Okay,
I approve.
then thank you. And Vice Chair Sneedy.
I approve.
Okay, the motion passes with unanimous consent without Director McCarthy, and as discussed, I will be, this will be a further discussion on the August meeting. So yes, next, moving forward to the final report for the Direct Inspection Committee, EL2C. So now I'll pass on to Chair of that committee.
So as is attached on page 56 of the agenda package, or if you go to the chart that's blue where everything is, table of contents, you'll be able to click on it and access it. That's something that Chair Dang has added to our agenda packages, which I think should be noted. So rather you scroll, you just click. So thank you. The committee was struck on June 10th, as we know, and it was mandated to review and assess the efficacy of the governance process. We noted that there shouldn't be any changes. We thought that it was fine the way it is. So myself, Dang, and Vale met to come to this conclusion, and that is why it is in the agenda package the way you see it right now.
Perfect. Do we have any questions for the Chair of the Direct Inspection Committee, EL2C, regarding the final report? If not, then can I get a motion on the board, motion on the table for the board to approve of the final report from DSC Committee EL2C? Just as a quick, this is a quick note. Sorry, I apologize. No notes required. Motion by Director Vale, seconded by Director Shandok. Would you like to speak to your motion? Any discussion on the matter? I just have one point, so I did remember what my note was. Moving forward, so after reviewing Robert's rules, it is in terms of general Direct Inspection Committee reports, members serving no longer have to abstain as long as there's no clear conflict of interest. So you can approve your own report moving forward. If there's no other discussions on the matter, all those in favor, Director Bothwell,
I approve.
Director Shandok,
I approve.
Director Del Giudice,
I approve.
Director May,
Approve.
thank you. Director McCarthy is still missing, unfortunately. Director Symington,
I approve.
Director Vale,
I approve.
and Vice Chair Sneedy.
I approve.
Okay, the motion passes unanimous consent without Director McCarthy. Okay, moving on. So we do have another committee election here for another DIC. So this is for the DIC committee EL2G. So the same rules applies to directors regardless of campus can stand for this committee. The floor is open to nominations. Director Vale.
Yes, I'd like to nominate Director May.
Director May, do you stand?
Sure.
Thank you. We have any other nominations? Vice Chair Sneedy,
I'd like to nominate Director Symington.
Director Symington, do you stand?
I stand.
Okay, perfect. Is there any other nominations on the table? If there are none, seriously, no one wants to go into committee elections for 25 minutes? Taking those disappointed faces are clear, no, in that case. So can I get a motion on the table for the, to claim Director Symington and Director May to the Direct Inspection Committee EL2G? Motion by Director Vale, seconded by Director Del Giudice. Would you like to speak to your motion? Any discussion on the matter? Again, to reiterate, if you are, due to this is just a DIC committee, for just review of policy, you do not have to abstain from approving of yourself unless you do have a clear conflict of interest regarding the nature of the policy. With that being said, all those in favor, Director Bothwell,
Approve.
Director Shando,
I approve.
Director Del Giudice,
I approve.
Director May,
I approve.
Director Symington,
I approve.
Director Vale,
I approve.
and Vice Chair Sneedy.
I approve.
Motion passes unanimous consent without Director McCarthy. Okay, thank you. Now we're going to move on to the in-camera session. So this is regarding the, we have two topics with that, the approval of the in-camera meeting minutes as well as the operational HR update. So with that being said, can I get a motion on the table to have the board, the president, and our full-time resources in camera? Motion by Director Shandok, seconded by Director Vale. Would you like to speak to your motion? Any discussion on the matter? As I see none, all those in favor, Director Bothwell,
I approve.
Director Shando,
I approve.
Director Del Giudice,
I approve.
Director May,
I approve.
Director Symington,
I approve.
Director Vale,
I approve.
Director Sneedy.
I approve.
Motion passes unanimous consent. For everyone else, thank you so much for your attendance. Just want to make sure that everyone here is supposed to, if possible, before we go complete officially in camera, can everyone turn on their cameras if possible? Gergeman, if possible.
Would you have to stop recording and make a new one?
That's what I'm gonna do.
That's right. You are